You are now tuned in to the Storm Tracker podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Storm Tracker podcast. Marcus Benjamin here with my guy Frank Tucker representing the Crib, South Florida. We're representing CanesCounty.com, part of the Rivals Network. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, like, and share. Make sure you follow us on all platforms as well. And subscribe to CanesCounty.com. You see the promo code down there, Miami 30. And last weekend, we had Miami's first open scrimmage. And it's actually the first one of the Cristobal era. We didn't get one of these last year. So it was a great opportunity for us as the media to kind of see this team in a real game setting, besides the spring game, obviously. And, we were baking in the sun out there. There were a few fans, I would say maybe close to 1,000 at the end of the day. They had Canes Fest at the same time. So it was a great event that they put together. But you really got to see a snapshot of this team and what it can be. And I'll tell you, Frank, I went into the scrimmage thinking, okay, maybe this team can win 9, maybe 10 games. But when I left this scrimmage, I felt like, okay, well, maybe it's going to be around 8 or 9, because they have some concerns at depth in a couple of areas. The areas that I think they don't have depth is defensive line, running back, and linebacker. Everything else, if they lose a couple of guys, I'm kind of worried. A couple key guys, at wide receiver, if they lose a Kobe Young, for example, I'm a little worried about that room when you don't have that big target on the outside. At safety, if any of those two safeties go down, I'm worried. If any of those DBs, like a Devontae Brown or Damari Brown, or even a Couch or Jaden Davis, I'm a little worried. And then at offensive line, I trust those 5 guys that they got. But if they lose any of those guys, like a Matt Lee, Javion Cohen, Jalen Rivers, then I'm a little worried there. So there's going to be some battles that will continue to go on. But I think the most evident battle for me right now that's going on is that running back. And I will have to concede to you, Frank, on this. I should have took this bet after the scrimmage, to be honest, because Mark Fletcher, he got those end zone carries, bro. And he is in the driver's seat to possibly start, and that's going to be an ongoing battle. I think Fletcher, AJ Allen, and Parrish. Well, it's going to be I think it's going to be a 3-man rotation there as far as running backs, and occasionally pop in a Chaney or Chaney might be there for a change of pace, maybe goal line. But that's kind of what I saw from that running back room. And then the other battle for me is cornerback. Damari Brown got a lot of reps, and Darryl Porter, he got a touchdown scored on him by Kobe Young in the end zone. He did have an interception that was an overthrow, kind of landed in his lap. But Darryl Porter, Damari Brown, Corey Couch, I feel like this is a 3-man battle for this second cornerback spot. Devontae Brown didn't get targeted at all in this game, so it seems like he's pretty much kind of locked down that one side. And then it's the linebacker battle. To me, I think Francisco Mauigoa is gonna guarantee to get one of those spots, but I think KJ Cloyd is pushing a little bit for Wesley Basaint, so I think there's going to be an ongoing battle. I think Wesley probably ends up winning it at the end of the day, but those are the 3 battles for me, from the scrimmage. And the other concerns for me, Frank, were the no-shows, man. Isaiah Horton was kind of a no-show in this scrimmage. The tight ends overall were a no-show. Now, Elijah Arroyo didn't play. Riley Williams also didn't play as well. But this was an opportunity, I would say, for Jaleel Skinner to really show what he can do. And he had 0 catches. I think it was targeted once. Now, albeit this could be a situation where Dawson doesn't really want to show his hand in an open scrimmage. It very well could be that case. But it is a concern, the fact that the tight ends didn't record a catch in this game. So that brings me to basically who can get more snaps or who will get more snaps this season. It's going to be interesting because our guy, Rueben Bain, Hurricane Bain, had another outstanding performance. And Jahfari Harvey comes back, from injury from the spring here, had a torn labrum. So I feel like this is a battle here for playing time or for snaps. When it comes to Jahfari Harvey and Rueben Bain, who do you think ends up with more snaps by season's end?
Rueben Bain. Rueben Bain is going to end up being the most productive member of that edge group, in my opinion. And I do apologize for the voice. I am fighting a little bit of a cold right now, guys.
Like the Godfather over there.
I did not just become a smoker overnight. But yes, I'm fighting the cold. But I love Rueben Bain's projection this season. I love his ability to be able to see the field early. But I think that they do like Jahfari Harvey as well. He does his job, right? Even if not exceptional, he still does his job the majority of the time. I just think that pass rush wise, we're going to see something like we saw with Greg Rousseau and Scott Patchen. Remember, it was like Scott Patchen wasn't a sexy player on the field, but he just did a decent job. And then he went to Colorado State and did a really decent job. But Greg Rousseau was just such an outstanding talent. I think that we're going to see that once again with somebody like Rueben Bain, who every time he gets on the field, he's getting pressures and he's getting to the quarterback. And against an ACC competition where it's not overwhelming with the offensive line talent in the conference, Miami was able to add some transfers and immediately kind of shoot up the board as one of the top units in the conference. So I love what Rueben Bain's going to be able to do this season as a true freshman. It's definitely not going to be a redshirt situation by any stretch of the imagination. And sure. I think that he's going to have a really good season. I think he's going to be a freshman All-American. I think both sides of the ball, they'll have the potential for that with Mark Fletcher and Rueben Bain. I said that, I think it was like about a month ago we talked about it. And sure. I said I saw the opportunity for both of those guys to get on the field, make some big plays, and the scrimmage was the first glimpse of that.
Another freshman that is showing glimpses of getting a lot of snaps is Damari Brown. Damari Brown, like I mentioned earlier, is a guy to watch for or to watch out for this entire cornerback group. And Porter was the guy in the spring. I mean, you could basically kind of pencil him in the spring. After that spring game, we pretty much kind of tabbed him as CB2. But now Damari Brown is coming on here. So by the season's end, do you think Damari Brown or Darryl Porter gets more snaps?
I don't know if Darryl Porter gets more snaps, but I might take the field. Demetrius Freeney's been banged up. Jadias Richard has had some rave reviews out of camp. I just don't – we spoke about when we're going to see our freshmen, at what point in the season were we going to see them. And I said probably around the third game, the Bethune-Cookman game for Damari Brown. And I still kind of hold true to that despite a solid showing in that scrimmage and despite him doing well in the spring. Cornerback is a position where you don't want to just throw a guy out in the fire and break his confidence. I know that DP is not living up to the transfer portal expectations when he came over from West Virginia as a potential all-conference guy. But at the same time, there's still a lot of talent in that defensive back room that has versatility to play outside corner. Corey Couch is a guy you mentioned before. You do have Darryl Porter. You got Jedias Richard. Demetrius Freeney is a guy who's already got college JUCO national championship level experience. Yeah. When he comes back, he's a very similar profile, sub 11 in the 100-meter type player. So I think that there will be a heavy rotation at corner this year, and I think that the field probably wins out over Damari. Would I be surprised if he kind of ran away with it? No, because we both thought Damari Brown was one of the top corners in the country and one of the most underrated recruits, despite being a 4-star kid. He was a guy that we saw give Jeremiah Smith his toughest battle of the year, and he's a generational receiver. So if he came out and stole the show, wouldn't be surprised. But I'm going to temper expectations a little bit and say that it's going to be more of a slow play for him than it would be for Mark Fletcher and Rueben Bain.
Which brings me to let's stay on the cornerbacks here. To Corey Couch, man. Corey Couch didn't have his best day during the scrimmage. He was beat by Xavier Restrepo, and Couch kind of just held on to him. If he doesn't hold, it's a touchdown. It's probably maybe a 50 or 60-yard bomb touchdown on a post. So Couch, you think? Let's just talk about him. Do you think he gets a good amount of snaps this season? I know you said you'll take the field over Damari Brown, but specifically with Couch, especially with his experience, also being able to play the star. But it seems like Jaden Davis is going to lock down that position. Do you see?
I don't think that. Yeah, I don't specifically see him having more snaps than Damari Brown. I think there's a lot more competition at that nickel corner spot now. Obviously, Jaden Davis being there, and when James Williams gets closer to the line of scrimmage, and we saw Marquise Williams get some shine in that scrimmage, it shows.
Except for that one play we got ran over by Mark Fletcher.
No, but I'm saying he's getting a lot of reps, right? Marquise Williams is a guy that Lance Guidry behind the scenes has talked about as someone who he really likes, and he's a more traditional safety than James Williams. That's going to force James Williams to get closer to the box. They've talked about it. We know about it now. It's not something that's behind the scenes. He's not necessarily been linebacker, but he's going to be playing in that nickel role when they put a bigger guy out there. And I think that's going to take some reps away from Corey Couch. And we still haven't really seen him develop as a tackler. And he's moving to the outside a little bit. But that's going to take some time. Jamari's already got more experience in the past few years at outside corner than Corey Couch does. And he's a better fit for it physically. So I think he's just going to be one of those, how Al Blades was. Before he transferred, right? Before everything kind of really fell apart, where he was a versatile. It's not great, right? But I'm just kind of giving a realistic view of what I think he's going to be. A versatile piece of the defensive backfield that knows what he's doing, is a veteran presence, I guess you could say, and is going to get reps at multiple spots, but maybe not a ton of reps. He's going to be able to slot in when you need him to. But Damari's the more high potential player, and a guy who should be, by mid-season, more positioned to be on the field full-time.
All right. Another battle is wide receiver. I think Brashard Smith really kind of – if the scrimmage is any indication of what's going to happen this season, then Brashard Smith is going to get some burn. And a lot of people are high on Ray. And Ray, for the most part, was playing with the second and third team. Brashard Smith was getting more play with that first team. Who do you think ends up with more snaps here, Brashard Smith or Ray Joseph by the end of the year?
Brashard Smith. Brashard Smith will get more reps, and he's a good player, right? He's talented. He's fast. Ray spoke about him almost taking like a little bit of a mentorship role with him through his first camp and through his first spring, him and Xavier Restrepo. And I love the work ethic from Ray. But there's gonna be some mental lapses from Ray. There's gonna be some moments where he's still got to get in the weight room a little bit. Ray. He's not a massive player by any stretch of the imagination. And listen, receiver is not one of those positions where you see true freshmen shine right away all the time.
Sure.
Especially in the slot where you got more of a versatile role, I guess you could say, right? It's a more diverse route tree. It's more of like, especially in this offense where I feel like that Tank Dell type role kind of comes from. It's going to be Xavier Restrepo and Brashard Smith as veteran guys. People fail to realize Brashard Smith is like the most productive receiver on the roster right now. That it's over the last 2 years. Despite him not doing anything of substance, really, he had a season where he was like 350 yards almost 2 years ago, and Xavier Restrepo has barely played a full season. So I don't think he's like a first-round talent by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that he's a guy that, because of his veteran presence in the offense, where there's not a ton of it right now, and his speed, which is going to finally be utilized in this air raid attack, is going to keep him on the field for more snaps than Ray.
I agree. And it's when you said that about Smith, it really kind of hit me of just how much inexperience this wide receiving core has. They're going to have to grow up fast here this season. I mean, like you said, Smith and Restrepo are your veterans, basically. I mean, if you want to count Kobe Young as well, but those weren't high-level football that he was playing prior to last season. So those are the battles that I think are kind of the most interesting going into the season. Of course, we'll see, what else is in store for these next couple of weeks before game 1, Miami of Ohio on September 1st, Friday night game. This week, we've had just one, if you want to call it viewing a practice. It was really kind of 5 minutes at best. And then they kind of escorted us out. Haven't had one again. I know there will be another scrimmage soon for the Hurricanes that will be closed. So it seems like more and more we're just not getting access. But at least we did get that scrimmage, because that scrimmage really kind of let us know kind of where the team is really, and what to expect for these next couple of weeks in camp and for that game 1. So on to recruiting, Frank. This week they kind of swung and missed at a few recruits here. Maybe we have some more coming down the pipeline this week. But a couple of players that they were high on that, they kind of, I guess, were not, or those players kind of took a different route, were TJ Lindsey and Asandre Afua. But the big one was Elias Rudolph, man. To get that flip from Michigan, like, let's face it, Michigan has been a contender. They were in the playoff a couple years back, and this is a team, or last year rather, and this is a team that is continuing to build momentum. They're number 2 in the country right now in the preseason poll, and they were able to flip Elias Rudolph. I find it like amazing, because his announcement or commitment was a huge affair, with his parents, his sister, all rocking Michigan gear. It was one of those events, and for Miami to flip him, what was it? I don't know, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later.
It was a little over a month. I think he committed on the 4th of July,
Okay.
and or there was the day before the 4th of July, and then obviously this past weekend, made that flip, and we heard a lot of smoke about that before his commitment. The day of, there was a lot of smoke about him potentially ending up at Miami rather than Michigan, and that was Miami making that late push right before his decision. He was a guy that Miami evaluated after coming down to Deerfield Beach High School from Taft in Ohio. He was an all-state kid, 19 sacks, almost 100 tackles. He's a multi-sport athlete, elite length and athleticism. We know what he can do on the football field. He had a little bit of an up and down recruitment. At one moment, it looked like it was Ohio State. Then it became like Cincinnati became a favorite. And then Michigan and Miami really turned up the heat towards the end. And Mario Cristobal does it again by getting a flip over Michigan in 2 cycles in a row. Collins Ashenpong in last year's class, it
Sure.
was another blue chip defensive end. He flips him, and now he flips Elias Rudolph. And I love the combination of Elias Rudolph and Marquise Lightfoot, 2 high potential athletic defensive ends that are going to bring a pass rush boost potentially as early as freshmen, just because they're extremely productive. They have a profile that fits what they want to do at either the defensive end or jack spot. And Jason Taylor is obviously prioritizing guys that fit the mold of what he looked like and played like when he was in the league. And they are 2 of the top 250 players in the country. And Marquise Lightfoot being a top 100 recruit, I believe. So when you're able to add 2 guys like that on the edge, I think that they won on this defensive line cycle, which is not even done yet. Because outside of them, you have Dylan Russell, who you and I are both very high on, and Artavius Jones, who has the potential to make a blue chip type jump before the season or after a few really good games to start the year. So love what they did there. And obviously they got another blue chip edition on Friday as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about the defensive line prospects that are still out there. Yeah, they missed on a Colin Simmons. That was kind of a whirlwind of a recruitment late. But there's still Kamarion Franklin that is out there. Booker Pickett is also out there as well. Had Miami both have Miami in their top schools list, and then you got David Stone, the big defensive tackle out of IMG. So there's still a lot of
high. And Aiden Breland. Aiden Breland too.
Aiden Breland as well. Out there at Modern Day, California. He's still very high on the Hurricanes as well. So you got all these guys kind of left here. And it seems like they're kind of focused on these guys and a couple of others as well. Ellis Robinson is still on their radar. Now a 5-star cornerback here at Rivals. He's still definitely a player that would be a great addition to this class that already has 21, I believe, recruits, which is a good amount. A lot of teams kind of settle at that number, but they can still build a lot in this class with a few months left here. So what do you think are their chances of getting those big name guys?
I think that they are really in the race for a few of them. We have an article that's going to come out today with a breakdown of where Miami's at with all their targets. I love where they're at with Zaquan Patterson still. I know that Auburn and FSU are going to make things interesting, but still, I still am keeping my future cast for Miami here. I think that eventually Miami, over the last part of his recruitment, will make things, homebound in a way. I don't like where things are at with Ellis Robinson. I think Georgia solidified his recruitment in a big way as the end of the summer came about. Kamarion Franklin is very much up in the air. despite like 6 visits to campus, we're hearing a lot of smoke from around the country about him to Auburn. So a little worried there. Aiden Breland has kept things really tight to the chest, right?
Yeah.
Like it's been quiet. It's been quiet for a kid who's a top 100 type player. I like where Miami's at, though. It's going to be tough to beat out West Coast teams, but I like where Miami's at. I think they got a real shot there. And Chris Cole is a Miami legacy. From what I'm hearing from people inside the program, they're still fighting. And I think it's the conversation is not going to be so much Georgia versus Miami. It's going to be SEC versus Miami. And does he want to play in that massive conference, or does he want a chance at really early playing time? He is an elite player. I don't care where he's ranked. Chris Cole immediately comes in as arguably the most talented linebacker on the roster when he does come. Because I think that Mauanoa is going to be gone after this year. I think he's a one-and-done kid from the transfer portal with a chance to be an early-round draft pick. He's going to have that type of season, all-conference with potential for All-American honors earned for him after coming over from Washington State. And Chris Cole is a freak athlete, really good length, instincts, just everything that this staff wants. They want to recruit NFL-style linebackers, and he fits that mold of like a Tremaine Edmonds who played at Virginia Tech and has been a stalwart in the NFL since being a first-round draft pick. I love his potential, and he's the type of guy that Miami wants to add at that linebacker position. So,
but what are the chances of landing Cole, you think?
High. If you're able to compete with Georgia this deep into the race, we know Rohan Marley is very close to him in his recruitment. He was able to get on campus multiple times, and I do think that Miami's got a really good chance. It's going to be tough.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough. I don't want to sit here and say that Miami's getting him, but this isn't a decision that is going to happen tomorrow. And we know how fluid recruiting is because we just saw Elias Rudolph after a ballyhoo decision and commitment at his high school with everybody there, commit to Miami, then a month later flip. So it's just how recruiting is. And I do think that with Rohan Marley in tow, family in South Florida, and the influence of Derek Nicholson, who's been on him for a while now, that's going to play a factor, and I like where Miami's at.
And David Stone, what do you think of him?
Oh man, what can we figure out what's going on in his recruitment? I don't think he knows what's going on in his recruitment. Right. It has been one of the weirdest processes in the cycle. 1 second it's a Michigan State lock. 1 second it looks like he's a Miami lock because of the IMG connection. Next second it looks like he's staying at home in Oklahoma. Now we're not hearing that there's as much smoke with him in Oklahoma. There, it seems like that fan base and everybody around that program is a little worried about what's going on, not as confident about landing him, despite getting Jaden Jackson in the class, who's his close friend and teammate at IMG Academy. So I don't think he has an idea of where he wants to go yet. Obviously, that commitment date is coming up soon. Yeah. But I think that's a good thing for Miami. We spoke to our guy John Garcia about it a little bit, and I think he kind of feels the same way as us. And Miami's going to continue to push on 5-star talents, right? Yeah. I know everybody wants to call Mario 3-star Rio and kind of knock the evaluations that Miami made in this 2024 cycle, but they're a top 15 class, and that's not anything to knock. Right, especially when you don't have a blue chip quarterback in the class. They've been able to do a pretty good job of building this class and keeping it among the top 3 in the ACC. So love what they're doing, and I think that this 5-star push through the last wave of the cycle is going to be big time.
Yeah, I think they've added a lot of potential guys, a lot of guys that have a lot of potential, with that last commit, Kavion Broussard. I mean, that kid has a lot of potential. I mean, he's large and he can move, as as we've seen and shown. So he can be a building block, and I think a lot of these kids are building blocks. Yeah, they got some superstars like Marquise Lightfoot and Elias Rudolph, JoJo Trader, obviously. But a lot of these guys, I think, have the potential to be great, and I think Miami feels confident that they can mold these guys into great players. But yeah, I mean that the recruiting is going to be fun to watch, and we'll see who else they land in these upcoming weeks. And Franklin is getting close to a decision, and so is Stone. But what I think is that even if they commit to a school not named Miami, I think Miami is going to continue to push for those guys until the very end. And we'll see how it all plays out. But Frank, it's our favorite time of the year, man. High school football officially starts, and I think to me, it's like the official start of football. It's first it's high school, then it's college, then it's the pros. So high school football doesn't officially start, but it officially starts for us because these are quote unquote preseason games or kickoff classics, whatever you want to call them. But these are games that these kids take seriously and these coaches take very seriously. And the big game of the week is a Chaminade versus Miami Northwestern. And last year they played. It's kind of odd that they played 2 years in a row. But last year they did play, and this was not really a contest from what I remember. It was kind of an easy game for Chaminade. Do you expect that to be a similar result on Thursday night?
I do. I do think they're going to show Northwestern's going to show a little bit more life on offense. Calvin Russell, I think, is going to still have some moments. Nicholas Lanier is a name that everybody needs to remember. Yeah. He has a Miami offer before he's even played a high school football game. We got a chance. Everybody got a chance to see him at the 2-2 Atwell 7-on-7, and he's been one of my guys. He played for that Lauderhill Lions team that I was pretty close to and won a national championship last year at the Youth National Championship, powered by Battle. And he's an exceptional talent. He's going to be one of those kids that we talk about in 4 years, like in the Brandon Ennis type light, the Malachi type light, right? Like he's a Malachi Tony type player. If we were giving out a Malachi Tony award this year, it would be him. So I love him there. They got a really good running back in Pito, who's going to be a good player. He's already at like double-digit offers. And Adrian Posse has a chance to kind of come out and have that type of season that we kind of expected him to when he was initially a 4-star player in the top 100 as a sophomore. So I like what Northwestern's got as a team, especially in Michael Lee Harris' first season, but Chaminade Madonna is just going to be dominant this year, and I don't see anybody really competing with them, and that includes St. Francis, other than Miami Central. That's going to be the Week 5 game that everybody around the country is going to be kind of circling on their calendars. So I think it's going to be a blow a little bit, but some offensive firepower on both sides.
You got a pre-line you want to give me?
Not for a kickoff class. Remember, it is week 0, guys, and I know this, and I'm just as excited for this as everybody else. But we could see the starters out on both sides, even if it's close at halftime, if coaches really wanted to.
True.
So it's hard to put a line on these games, but if it was a Friday night game in week 2, I probably would put a 42 to like 21, 42 to 24 type spread.
That's where I saw it or see it as well. The other big game this week, you mentioned Malachi Tony. He's going to be playing this week with his squad against Booker T, a really talented Booker T squad. It's the other really big game. Well, there's a couple more. There's a
few. I'll run them down for you if you want.
But let's talk about Heritage and Booker T. Where you see that one kind of playing out here.
Booker T is going to have a really good year.
Yeah.
They're going to surprise some people.
Yeah, they are.
I got Ice Harris for the second season now. You got Max Edwards, former Miami Northwestern head coach, now in the program as a defensive coordinator. That's almost a cheat code in high school football. He's been a national championship type coach, multiple time state championship winning head coach, and has developed some really good defenses and really good defensive players like Cam Kinchins, who is balling at Miami. And he's got himself an elite free safety in Antonio Branch, and got himself a lockdown corner, Ben Hanks. And that running game for Booker T is going to pay dividends. They got some really good talent, young talent at receiver, and Jamori Flagg, who's an FSU commit at defensive tackle, might cause some issues. So I think it's going to be a really good game. To me, this is probably the most exciting game of the weekend.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be close, but Booker T probably takes it.
Oh, wow.
I do think that both teams are going to take this game pretty serious. But I do think American Heritage is almost going to take this as an identity-finding game. It's Diabell's first start, DeAndre Desanor's first game, who's a top 150 player in the country at running back. It's going to be for his first game at Heritage. You got a young offensive line. You got some young pieces on defense. Outside of Malachi Toney, there really hasn't been a guy that has dominated at receiver. So you're going to be trying to fill the Brandon Ennis void. There's some pieces that they gotta kind of prove is mature enough to step up in this 2M competition, which includes Booker T. So I think Booker T is just a little bit more ready to play on Friday nights right now than American Heritage, and that's not a knock to one of the best coaching staffs in the country, because they took Miami Central down to the wire in the state championship game last year. But when you are replacing Mark Fletcher, when you are replacing Damari Brown, and you are replacing Brandon Ennis in a flurry of Power 5 talent, it's gonna be a little bit of there's gonna be some growing pains. Let's just say that. And I think the first game is gonna be that, because they got a St. John's team who's gonna be tough in week 1 in that Broward versus USA showcase.
Definitely. That makes me even more intrigued for that game. I was already excited for that game this week just because I'm really high on Booker T. But the fact that you are picking them makes me more intrigued by it. The other game for me that is a high profile is Miami Norland and Ely. A lot of hype on Norland this year, and for good reason. They're loaded with talent, and we're both very high on their quarterback, EJ Yapur. So how do you think this one kind of plays out? And then your boy Mike on the other side coaching for Ely, my guy too. So this is going to be an interesting battle, and a very good first game for both teams here. So how do you think that one plays out?
I'm gonna pick Norland. It's the easy pick here, but Ely's not gonna just lay down. We saw last year Norland played a similar game like this. Maybe not as talented. An Ely team is not as talented as that Dillard team was last year, but there is a lot of talent on this Ely team. Underrated talent at that. They added Joshua Lloyd from Dillard. They added Keith Thompson. Those are two Division I defenders that they brought on.
Kids, yeah.
Yeah, Jordan St. Tillis was a safety who had like 5 or 6 interceptions. Is another Division I kid. They have pieces. Marcel Williams is one of the best receivers in the area.
Probably I would most underrated.
Absolutely. Yeah. If he ended up going Power 5 late in the cycle, I would not be surprised. He's 6'1", really good hands, strong route runner. So I think Ely's going to put up a fight. It's at Ely. We know how Pompano gets as an area. From what I'm hearing, the game is going to be sold out. And Ely's trying to make a statement. Remember, they went undefeated in the regular season last year. And despite losing some pieces like Harlem Howard, who went to Oregon State, they still have a lot of talent. And they reloaded at spots. So if their quarterback play can step up, we could see an interesting game between them and Norland. But Enyo Yapur, that's my guy, the number 7 dual threat quarterback in 2025. He's a guy I wish Miami would try to recruit, because I think he's so good. He's going to be the all-time leading passer in Dade County history. He had 1,000 yards rushing last year too, over 4,000 yards of total offense. And I think he's going to do that once again this year.
Injured.
First game. Injured, right? Injured. Had a knee issue that he had to get cleaned up after the year, and did it and put Norland on his back, and not as talented Norland team as they are this year, to 9 wins, and it was 35-20 against Miami Central in the state playoffs in the 3rd round, and we're gonna see they're gunning for a state championship this year, and this is gonna be the first test, because if you can knock off one of the best public schools in Broward County, it's going to prove to everybody that you're real. So I'm excited for this game. I think there's a lot of emotion going into this one, and I think that Norland's going to take it, but it's going to be a fun one to watch.
Sure, absolutely. Well, those are the 3 games that I'm most excited about.
One more. There is one more where there is some Miami targets involved, and that's Monarch versus Coconut Creek. Coconut Creek has some good talent, and we know that the passing game for Monarch is going to be explosive, to say the least. You got Jahfari Brady, one of the best receivers in 2026, and already one of the top targets for Miami at the receiver position, regardless of class. Samari Reed, who's a 2-way player, basketball star as well, who's a top 150 player in that 2025 class. Really good potential. On the defensive side of the ball, they're good. They're going to be really good this year. Monarch is a state championship contender in that 4M classification. And then Coconut Creek, they got some Division I kids all over the field. We're gonna see how they put it together in the battle for Coconut Creek, the Mayor's Cup, I guess you could say. And if you go on Instagram, you're gonna see a lot of that's what the team is they're saying. So I guess they're kind of putting that together. They don't traditionally play each other, I don't think, every year. So this is gonna be a very, very fun one. There's a lot of emotion going into this game. If I wasn't at Traz Powell this week, that's the game that I'm targeting, because I want to see some good football. And those are 2 teams in a week 0 matchup that are going to be going 100 miles an hour each play.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for football. I'm excited for college football and the Hurricanes, and see what they can do bouncing back from a 5-7 season. I'm ready for the NFL too. Fantasy football is about to get started here. I'm going to try to go for back-to-back champions. We'll see how that goes down. King of the Tyreek Hill won it all last season, despite almost a fluky ending. But I think I'm going to name my team It Takes Two this year. I think that's what I'm going with. And hopefully we can go back to back. But excited for football, man. Football is officially back this week. I think that's going to wrap it up for us, though, here on the Storm Tracker podcast. Make sure, again, that you like, subscribe, and share this podcast and YouTube channel live from Canes County. Most importantly, subscribe to canescounty.com for free using the promo code Miami 30. Until the next episode.